Aiden returns to Chicago for a visit. He has been gone no more than a couple of days, and yet it seems like a whole new world order is in place. For the autistic, being orphaned is one of the worst fears. The Ghost in the Machine. Part 1. A bottle of beer seemed reasonable at this juncture. Its calming effect, however, did not afford enough courage to brave another night in a house with only bad dreams for company. There was one place where Aiden believed he might safely bed down for the evening, and this idea placed him behind the wheel of his car heading for the highway. The lights of stone's throw slipped away in his rearview mirror, and the dark, widening shoulder soon swallowed everything, including any momentary regret in leaving. The solitary painter always felt like he was living out of an overnight case, and no place in the world could seduce him into unpacking it for good. He was never able to escape the suspicion that everything he did in his life was, after a fashion, arbitrary. Whether he settled here or there, whether he fell in love with this woman or that one, there was never a good enough reason why he was anywhere. He desired so little materialistically that would tie him irreversibly, even bitterly, to a place. Stone's Throw was no more home than Chicago, but Chicago was his present destination. Too many stretches of byway in a small world were too familiar to him, and a point came where he convinced himself that it was not he who passed through a landscape, but rather a landscape that passed through him. Aiden was admittedly the church janitor at every wedding and the gravedigger at every funeral. Still, he never felt his isolation more keenly than when he traveled alone. It was sentiment, imposed by reflection, that saw not so much what was personal about a place as impersonal, not so much what was changing as unchanging. The driver stayed focused on the highway, even as his sights kept being drawn to the view out the rear window. If the police were tailing him, they stayed well back on the deserted road. No sooner had he formulated this objectionable premise than flashing red lights were spotted gaining on him. He shriveled with dread and shaved speed off the speedometer in anticipation of being pulled over, but the lights vanished. The approaching vehicle probably turned off a side road, and though this merited a sigh with relief, the rearview mirror continued to be a preoccupation. Hypnotically, the red-tinged white line flowed from beneath the back tires like blood spilling into dangerous waters. Roadside leaves of greenish yellow and vermilion followed this trickle down a funnel. Something, it seemed, was muscling its way out of the darkness. Something, it seemed, was keeping pace. Cornstalks on either side of the car resembled curtains swaying against a starless sky, placing the horizon uncomfortably close. Just as the jittery driver twiddled the knob on the dashboard radio, an ambulance, a classic Cadillac red and white ambulance, erupted out of the black cauldron behind him. Its headlights were off up to the moment it roared by with blaring siren and shrieking screams. Ghoulishly clad Halloween revelers hung out of every window to savor their prank. Before disappearing completely from view, terrified Aiden saw a drunken woman fall out of the vehicle's passenger window. He swerved to keep from hitting her and stuttered to a stop on the gravel shoulder. The rural darkness was visceral on climbing out of his car, but his taillights burned away enough miasma to reveal only a tattered dress lying in the middle of the road. The motorist knelt over the garment with equal parts confusion and consternation. It was wet and covered with uprooted clover and probably tossed up by an ambulance tire. He folded its fray corners and pushed it off the highway in a make-do burial and returned to the idling Saturn. Several miles of road placed a filling station in his path, one of those catering to truck drivers getting on and off the interstate. A scratchy AM radio greeted Aiden at the door, but an attendant was nowhere seen. Cognizant of his earlier beverage, he negotiated a bright aisle of souvenir mugs and automotive air fresheners to reach the restroom. A roaring hand blower accosted him on entering the accommodations. Since no pair of hands availed themselves of this toasty column of air, the contraption likely doubled as an area heater. A row of out-of-order urinals, taped up with trash bags, was equally unwelcoming. He stepped into a dilapidated stall and sought to blot out the abysmal surroundings. The syrupy smell of pink hand soap could not mask the stench of decades-old urine wafting off the floor. Heaps of tissue paper, like stinging jellyfish, colonized the puddle around his commode's leaky gasket seal. A Bible verse had been carved into the particle board partition with a car key and offered solemn instruction. Work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. Philippians 2:12. A high-pitched squeak interrupted the sermon. The frequency was one the listener regarded with peculiar contempt. Cinder blocks intensified its unpleasantness. A survey was made of the basin mirror out the door gap. Blasting wind punched through a narrow window high on the exterior wall. It spit leaves, such as those that accompanied his trip, down among peeling paint chips in the floor. The adjacent stall door yielded to this effect, although the trebly noise likely originated with the hand blower. The overwrought visitor barely washed his hands at the dribbling tap, and, while lingering over the irksome blower, was obliged to study a fresh coat of Krylon paint applied to its cover. The touch-up was intended to mask graffiti, but a phone number remained readable. Aiden wondered who minded the store. A security monitor above the cigarette rack revealed unoccupied aisles converging on a back wall freezer. However, it was the drama playing out in the upper corner of its screen that deserved attention. Two lovers, seen through the plate glass door, squabbled in a car on the parking lot. The young woman jumped out of the passenger side, stripped to bra and briefs. She screamed through the roll-down window as she tussled to remove a pair of jeans from the front seat. The apparent boyfriend threw his stick shift in reverse and squealed away with the garment, leaving her to hop about barefooted on the prickly pavement. Turning to the door with a scowl, she locked eyes on her voyeur, hurling his unsolicited stare back in his face through the TV screen. "Did you want some gas?" asked the impatient attendant. The startled motorist mumbled, "No." Approaching the glass door, no woman was standing at it. The traveler cautiously stepped outside and scanned the shrubbery along the perimeter, but no one, clothed or unclothed, was about. He was taking inventory of the back seat of his car when a motion detector light switched on across the lot. Glare uncovered only range-stressed boxes and an overflowing dumpster on the far side of the building. The mischief of more leaves likely activated the sensor. A low concrete structure lay beyond this scene in a cornfield. Guy wires were embedded in it, and from what little was visible of them, they stretched up into the night sky without end. Given the angle of the supports and their substantial gauge, the aerial tower they supported must have been dizzyingly tall. No capping beacon was spotted against the stars. Aiden did not queue up immediately for the interstate, but backtracked down the country road at a crawl. His high beams poked along the short, cropped, grassy shoulders, yet with no success in locating the stranded woman. After a half-mile, it was obvious she made an escape by other means. So the Good Samaritan turned around at a mailbox and aimed for the 180 on-ramp. Merging into traffic, he glanced in the rearview mirror and finally spotted a blinking light atop the dark tower. Below it, more lights illuminated an advertisement for adult movies. Yet the fierce wind had succeeded in turning this signage, like a weather vane, toward uninhabited miles of dark countryside. Within 20 minutes, the motorist was barreling down the Dan Ryan Expressway. He pulled into the driveway of the family house and was dismayed to find all the windows dark. It seemed odd that his sister would not be home on a weeknight. The brother straightened the realty sign in the yard before continuing up the porch steps. He felt under the flower pot for the spare key, but it was missing. This was his only way into the house, as Miranda well knew. Baffled, he circled the property to find the patio doors unlatched. A tumble emanated from the den ceiling on admittance. His ears followed its strange discordance. This was likely his hyperactive nephew galloping about upstairs while his mother was away. "Aaron?" he called out. The silence felt so entrenched that his voice surely intruded on it. The uncle passed through the living room to the foyer, where a desk lamp on the bureau provided context. Light not only uncovered the spare house key lying in a decorative glass ashtray, but also the note he wrote Miranda days earlier. It was still unread under the paperweight. The thought occurred to him that, when he spoke to his sister over the phone the previous evening, she had no idea he was calling from a different town. The stomping overhead sounded again, and just as abruptly stopped. If someone disengaged from exercise equipment, perhaps this was rehabilitation therapy involving the invalid boarder. The foyer lamp was turned off just when a door creaked upstairs. The whine of floorboards told Aiden someone snuck his way. He retreated into darker shadow and was flabbergasted to see the muddy outline of a nude woman emerge at the stair rail above. She peered down into the foyer, but it was doubtful he was seen. This was not his sister. It was another woman who gained access to the house with the spare key while his sister was out. The invalid boarder apparently had a lover. The woman slowly melted from view, and shrinking from the compromising details, Aiden sought a hasty exit. The idea his childhood home was invaded by strangers added to his insecurity. There could be no going home, even in the rudimentary sense, and not simply because the spare house key had been disturbed. With one sleeping option removed, Aiden drove into the loop in search of another. He walked into the lobby of Omar's rundown hotel and felt its dire decor press in on him. The burnished ceiling smelled of old pipe tobacco. Candle holders with long arthritic fingers of wax drooped from the cornice. The visitors stepped to the front desk to find a row of stanchion-braced security monitors blinking behind a counter. Catty-corner to these vacuum tube relics, a mangy stuffed owl beckoned with outstretched wings over a gloomy archway. An inscription beneath it read, "The owl of Minerva spreads its wings only with the falling of the dusk." Hegel. The bird of prey was the most conspicuous creature in the lobby, given its perch, but there were others. Displays of taxidermy covered every inch of the cherry-hued walls. These were not typical bucks with antlers, but large game animal heads, including a buffalo, a rhinoceros, and several wildebeest. Because there was not enough room to accommodate all of them, a few were stashed among the cushioned chairs. The bell of the serpentine marble-top desk was rung, and an elderly, dapper man, pickled in odoriferous mothballs, came out of a back room. He looked like a funeral director summoned inconveniently from his dinner. Aiden queried him, "Do you have rooms available on the ground floor?" The man squinted suspiciously.
"We have one room available at the moment, sir. On the top floor."
The acrophobic guest hesitated, but was eager to see his friend. He placed his credit card on the counter. The stoop-shouldered concierge finished up with a blue carbon receipt.
Would you care to take advantage of our wake-up service, sir? Or our gentleman's library?
Gentleman's library? The immaculate man paused to consider his words judiciously.
Videos, sir. Videos of a particular nature. This is a gentleman's hotel. We offer it as a service to our guests and residents.
Aiden, taking his receipt, answered, "No, thank you." An encounter with the rickety elevator was inescapable, but fate intervened when a voice, familiar to him since childhood, sprang from the darkened lounge.
Eddie?
Omar stood under the owl's cradling wings. The pals settled in a favored tavern, which was easy walking distance from the hotel. A round of beers was ordered. The lawyer used the interval to assess his friend's state of mind.
What compelled you to drive here at night?
Aiden sighed. You should move to Stone's Throw. Keep me on the straight and narrow before I end up a homeless wino, badgering people with a metal detector. Omar rolled his eyes.
Don't pull that Van Gogh number on me. I don't want you FedExing me your severed ear in some pity-grabbing attempt to make me feel guilty. What's wrong?
Aiden burrowed into his mood. I thought moving to a new town would be a healthy change, but everything is confused. The caretaker's child has gone missing. I dreamt I saw her the night she disappeared, but can attest to nothing given my sleepwalking. Now the police have searched my house. I think I'm their prime suspect. Omar cut him off.
I'm glad you came up. It saves me a telegram.
Telegram? Since when do you send telegrams?
Since it's likely your phone is bugged.
What are you talking about? Omar swelled in his take-charge way.
I knew this whole inheritance thing smelled fishy. I've got friends in Hollywood. They hear things, know things.
And?
Fox is launching a new reality TV show in January. I don't know what the title will be, but I know the premise. And I know they're filming it as we speak in the greater Chicago area. The show involves setting up hidden cameras in a house somewhere, luring a sap into it with a phony story, and then putting him through the paces with spooks, goblins, and the works.
You think I'm the sap?
It's an uncanny coincidence, isn't it, considering what you've just told me?
It sounds far-fetched.
Well, listen, check out the house when you go back home. The place may be wired to the rafters.
The friend rattled off a to-do list.
Check your light fixtures, behind mirrors, your phone. Be careful about it. If they think you're onto them, they might try something like sending another squad car by your house to cow you. They'll make you think you're under police surveillance.
Aiden was dreary for effect. I'm already under surveillance. The police told me not to leave town. They may have followed me up from Stone's Throw.
If they show up, we'll say you came to consult with your lawyer. Don't worry, I'll come down in a couple of days and sort this out.
Aiden took another swig of his wheat beer, wanting to be comforted, if not wholly convinced. Omar leaned into the table light, redirecting his friend's thoughts.
Do you have a coffee house in this one-horse college town of yours? Some place you can take me?
Being in nothingness.
Any pretty girls in the caffeine drug trade there?
A few. Omar knew his pal too well.
A few, my ass. You say a few when you have only one in mind, like you can blow smoke up my skirt.
There is one.
Ha!
The lawyer smacked the table with a chortle.
If you were any more predictable, Greenwich could strap a clock to your back.
The friend quibbled. I met her at a party before I met her at the coffee house.
You went to a party? Picked up a chick at a party?
Nothing like that. Aiden could see his friend rushing ahead. I think she's fooling around with a college professor. A painting prof.
Then it's not some blue-eyed college boy. She's got a thing for older men.
The artist toyed with the cork-lined coaster under his glass. I couldn't say. Omar snarled.
Again with the smoke.
I don't know how close they are.
Is he married?
Yes.
He's a married man banging a student, and you're worried about breaking up true love?
Aiden was about to raise a challenge. Omar laid into him.
Even if she dumped this geriatric lover tomorrow and started parading around your table in tassels and making little hearts in your latte foam, you wouldn't do dick about it.
He thrummed the table in frustration.
Seize the day and stop looking for excuses not to act.
Aiden defended his indecisiveness. This may all be a power trip for her. She has me sized up as a mentor. I mean, who am I to her? Just another aging guy with encroaching prostate cancer who leers at her between slurps of coffee. The lawyer's eyes widened in amazement.
You're psyching yourself out. Does it matter why she likes you?
It wouldn't be ethical for me to act on this. She lost her father just last month.
Was she close to him?
Yes.
She's a daddy's girl then.
Cogs turned in the friend's mind.
She wants to be coddled and cuddled by a father, now more than ever, and you want to get into her pants. It's a slam dunk.
I'm not so plodding. Omar pressed his case.
Agendas, conscious and unconscious, abound on all sides. Reasons and ethics are afterthoughts in these matters. Instinct more than happenstance is why the two of you are in each other's lives.
Aiden remained conflicted.
Don't make this yet another occasion to be humiliated, Addie. Look on it as a golden opportunity. You can play all this prof's roles. Mentor, father, flesh and blood lover, and without the complication of a clinging wife. Invariably, there will be a transference of affections on her part. You get your artistic ideal, and she winds up with the better man.
You know young women, homie. Their whims and games.
Look,
Snapped the teacher.
there isn't going to be a written invitation, ever. Every woman plays the percentage, the across-the-room stare, and then the icy shoulder when you're at arm's length. There has to be at least one hurdle for you to tackle, even if it is sometimes only inches high. Love easily won never wrote a poem. Every woman knows this. Desire is always your weakness and her strength.
That sounds manipulative.
Men live by logical deliberation, grasshopper, but women live by intuition, and intuition puts them closer to the heart of the matter. Women don't see what they do as manipulation. It never rises to the level of reflection for them, rationally or morally, and when confronted with it in those terms, women don't recognize it as such. Most men think women are stupid because they can't name their motives. Yet, men are the stupid ones because they think it all comes down to dotted I's and crossed T's.
Aiden laughed. This coming from a man who thinks women are cattle.
Not cattle, sharks. I respect women more than you think. Hold your friends close and your enemies even closer. For me, that often comes down to a couple of grand a night.
Omar finished the last of his beer.
Speaking of which, we need to get back to the hotel.
The painter suddenly looked old. Can love save me? The eagle pulled in his talons.
In a manner of speaking. But that's not what troubles me. Your tortured relationship with women would baffle an air traffic controller. Most men settle, sooner rather than later. Yet you have so compartmentalized your needs, and so cultivated elaborate screens to hide them, I fear not even you can fathom the Frankenstein your heart would likely create.
Aiden couched his dilemma in practical terms. I wish there were older women of my acquaintance. Omar was not buying it.
That sounds like something a cad would say to get laid by an older woman after a long night at striking out at the bar. Save the phony virtue.
I would never rule out a woman because of her age.
You don't have to. Nature does it for you.
But Omar was brittle.
How many attractive 30-something women do you know who hang out at coffee houses looking for a good man with no economic prospects?
Aiden slumped.
Look, it all comes out in the wash. In the realm of womanhood, there are pretty young girls, and then there are frumpy, sweat-suited creatures of indeterminate age. There's a switch in women where they go from being lines of poetry in a book to being boarded over storefronts, all in a sobering blink. It's a bait and switch, Addie, so Get what you can while you can. By the time this bohemian goddess turns into a double wide, you won't be able to get it up anymore anyway.
Aiden dulled. What oracle could conjure a more miserable fate? What I need is a suitable matchmaker. What I need is Jane Austen as a dating service.
Reality check, Mr. Darcy. Jane Austen never married.
With this declaration, Omar slapped a 20 down by his empty glass and stood up. Aiden rose with a smattering of resolve. I hope, in the end, desperation will be enough of an incentive to make me act. Omar howled.
Only a pathetic loser like yourself would see being backed into a corner as a triumph of the spirit.
The painter almost sank back into his seat. Omar gave his pitiable friend some final advice.
For a passionate artist, you wield logic like an addict wields a needle. What you need most is to get laid. And I don't mean fall in love and all that crap. I mean get your brains royally fucked out. That would get you past all this self-defeating subterfuge. You need distance and leverage, neither of which you got.
He moved toward the door in a change of direction.
Will you be able to sleep tonight?
I'm not sure.
I will send a sleeping pill by your room.
Booze and pills don't mix. The lawyer dismissed the adage.
You just need the right pill.
The beginning of chapter 14 may be viewed as a conclusion to the nightmare started in chapters 12 and 13. In the second half of 14, we meet not only the last major character to be introduced to Icarus Transfigured, but also the most mysterious. The Ghost in the Machine, Part 2. Omar regarded Aiden's views on the female sex as willful distortions arising from not living in close quarters with his specimens. Given his view of women on the whole, the lawyer was less exacting on intangibles and partners. What he wanted was specific, which required directness and little finesse in obtaining it. Aiden, for his part, so overthought every aspect of the female psyche that he rarely acted on any impulse. Omar was a big picture thinker. So was blinded to, and blindsided by, details. It was water off the back of a duck for him either way. The painter, to his regret, lacked this constitution. Aiden could see where his friend could not, the inevitable outcomes of personal entanglements. How prolonged intimacy ran afoul of diverging interests. Omar would argue, rightly, that all relationships might be destined to dull under a prospect of overfamiliarity, but life must be filled with something, even happiness derived from short-term self-deception. Aiden could not dispute the point, but there was something in his character that ruined him for even his fair share of self-deception. The lawyer's penthouse apartment in the crumbling hotel was his home away from home when he was in Chicago. Although Aiden, with his fear of heights, was reluctant to visit him there, this time, at least, they would not only be on the same floor, but also in neighboring rooms. Omar had his guest charges removed from the register before the two braved the elevator. The resident was a late riser, so would not be up when Aiden departed. On splitting up in the hallway, he reiterated to his under siege friend that he would come to Stone's Throw in a few days to clear up his troubles. By the time the woozy guest put his key in the room door, he could barely string together the evening's events that led him to it. He latched onto the doorknob to turn it, and glanced up to see a shapely woman enter his friend's apartment. He presumed she was a room-maid by the pushcart left in the hall. With fading steps, Aiden toddled over the dark threshold and knocked a videocassette box off the top of a television. Bar light from across the street illuminated the film's unpromising title, Invasion of the Bodily Snatch. The guest stepped over it and into the bathroom to flush out the libation he cavalierly consumed. After a few turnarounds between the towel bar and sink, his jacket in he parted company, and his attention turned agreeably to the bed. It appeared solid enough, so straight away he fell on it to arrest things still spinning in the dark. The delayed effect of the alcohol laid bare the true object of his unsettled state. Perhaps the suitor only drove away to miss her, to feel her like nails in his chest. A pair of beady eyes emerged out of the murkiness to intrude on his self-pity. Grasping they were attached to the unlikely form of a horse head mounted on the wall, Aiden pried himself from bed, stripped off the spread, and draped the cover over the offending eyesore. Having rectified the problem, he wasted little time burrowing down into the lowest spot in the mattress. After a minute or two, he would neither budge nor descend further. It was not like sleep, however. It was eerily something else, something raw and closer to the surface of his anxiousness. He cracked an eye on hearing a muffled squeak in the hallway. This was probably the maid's cart on the move, which seemed to echo out of the bowels of a catacomb. It grew gradually louder in his ear until it stopped short of the bed. Aiden propped open a leaden lid. The spread had succeeded in pulling the horse head off the wall. Both now lay in a heap on the floor. His wish was to leave it, but the creature's snout stuck out in a threat. With grudging effort, the guest rose to not only recover the odious monster, but also to seize the occasion to scoot as much of it under the bed frame as would fit. The effulgent glow from the window surged with the last nudge. An impression was already half in his mind before the outline on the discolored wallpaper was full seen. The ghost image left by the taxidermist's plaque uncannily mirrored those found in the corridors of Nader Hall. Before venturing another pass at the bed, its blanket was stripped to blot out the neon glare in the window.
Darkness, the tired man reasoned, was surely conducive to sleep.
He closed his eyes with greater resolve and resumed his effort, but the noisy cart was again on the move. Its last inch to the bedside was excruciating to endure. Aiden clenched his lids tighter, refusing to relinquish if only in theory he was asleep. The squeaking abruptly stopped. The silence that followed was pricklier than the noise. The hotel guest was regardless, dead to the world,
or as dead as he could make himself. He was back in the restroom at the filling station, fussing with the busted faucet. Momentarily, he stepped to the hand dryer and stared at its half-painted over graffiti. The blower began clanging loudly, sending its clamor ricocheting off cinder block walls. A fist planted on the loose aluminum encasement produced a key, which dropped from the whirling blades to the floor. This tool was seized as a scraper. Characters underwent a process of suppuration and pushed up through the shavings of the enamel spray paint. However, this action did not lay bare the hidden numbers. It merely rearranged the ones he could read. "I'm asleep," he told himself. The dreamer returned to the front of the station and eyed the TV monitor behind the counter suspiciously. It was now a black curtain drawn over something. At the double doors, an imprint measuring the rough dimensions of a forehead marked the spot where someone had leaned into the glass for a view. Lipstick, a smudged kiss, tagged the onlooker as female. Beyond this calling card, the bright interstate beckoned to the east, though the darker way prevailed. Something lay dead ahead on the rural road. Its movement was disentangled from the landscape before any distinct feature. He compared the ghostly outline to parts of a combustion engine, namely 2 alternating pistons. Their labor was methodical, unhurried, and concealed by a company of shadows. An article of clothing or two marked the dividing line of the road. and Aiden had driven a quarter mile before his headlights lit solidly upon pale buttocks in the uncharted shoulder opposite him. The nude woman showed no reaction to being caught in the glare and did not alter her slow pace. He eased off the gas and rolled down his window. "Do you need a ride?" Little of her face was seen. A beaded line within her profile matched the shade of lipstick from the glass door. Unsure what to do, the inquirer pulled ahead, yet maintained visual contact with the luckless pedestrian through the side view mirror. She was quickly shrinking on her steps. Her mouth moved as if speaking aloud to him, but her blank, unreadable expression drew away like blood in a syringe. On reaching a mailbox reflector, Aiden swung the car around to face her. She had evaporated in an instant. Her tracks were retraced, in belief she might have hunkered down in the weeds, yet where any thought could be separated from his search, he did not trust it. An unearthly hush pushed under his car. The world seemingly fell away beneath it. Aiden reached for his radio. A cracking voice, like static popping against his fingertips, crawled up the back of his hand. "If you would like to make a call." Abruptly, a Cadillac ambulance overtook him in the opposite lane with blazing lights. The driver watched in horror as the mute vehicle tore away in a long, dripping line. The carcass of a headless horse dragged behind it. The blackish form scuffed and tumbled indignantly over hard pavement. Chunks of cartilage and bone flew off to roll under Aiden's tires. They rapped like knuckles on the floorboard, wanting to be let in. With sudden elucidation, the dreamer realized the disturbance was underneath his bed. He bolted off of it and toward the door. Victorian wallpaper wrapped around him in the hallway, leaving him to plunge through a dim exit door and down a half flight of stairs. His shoulder smacked into a window at the turn. Flesh tint leapt to its frosted glass. He was directly on a darker half-light. The pinkish form, he was certain, slipped past another window. Aiden banged his way down the next flight of cement steps. Arms, yanked from their sockets by centrifugal force, proved to be wings of no recourse. The vertigo and stinging blows persisted long after he came to rest on his back. His gaze carried over the dark steps above him, assuming it had been his falling body, like a pair of scissors, which made the tears of light separating one flight from another. A voice echoed down the well. "If you would like to make a call, please hang up and try again." There was a pause. A response was expected. His eyes strained to navigate the twist of handrails again. Surely a woman peered down from the very top of the stairwell. Her bleary expression seemed unnaturally wide. "If you would like to make a call, please hang up and try again," she repeated. The address was directed at him, but the words crept down the steps with mischief. It was the voice of a man mockingly imitating a woman. Several strange lines ran parallel to the woman's mouth. They were fingers. Fingers of another person making her lower jaw open and shut. Her head appeared to have no body. Aiden sat up, but it must have been minutes later. A fierce headache followed him to his feet. He trudged up the steps to retrace his out-of-time fall and found the maid's cart still in the hallway. Omar's door was ajar. His friend, lost in his dark library of a room, sat in a chair reading Parmenides by a small, insufficient lamp. He looked up to see his friend swaying in the doorway.
What happened?
He asked. "I fell." A woman emerged halfway out of a dark adjoining room. The white outline of a maid's uniform betrayed her eavesdropping. Omar gestured her over, but she preferred her covert.
My friend said you scared her half to death,
He explained.
I told you I would send something by your room to help you sleep.
The blushing guest averted his gaze to the unraveling edge of a Persian carpet, which was better lit by the hallway than the apartment. You shouldn't have, he grumbled. The friend sighed.
You need help with your little problem.
Aiden shrank from the lecture and rejoined, Not that kind of help. Parting words followed the guest to his room.
Lock the door so you don't go wandering off to tumble downstairs.
The battered, bruised friend wished he had stayed in stone's throw. He sat on the corner of the bed, slow to hear the oscillating ping of the phone receiver swinging from the side of the bed table. He must have knocked it off the hook in a mad scramble to the door. Reconnecting it to the base, shoes under the same table were contemplated. Gravity intervened. An interval of unknown duration occurred. A soft voice took the form of a ledge near the dark bed. I'm sorry if I startled you. Aiden probed for the lamp switch beside him. Fingers lit tenderly on his. Leave it, she said, seizing the moment to kick off her high heels. Can I crawl in for a second? He rolled over onto his sore back, where accommodations were made. Are you in pain? She inquired. The fragrant form of her wafted over the bed, as if heavy summer clouds overtook him in a nap. Beyond the white of her teeth and curl of her thick eyelashes, she was both too dim and too close to see. Lie on your stomach, she instructed. With effort, the man complied. A firm hand slid between his shoulder blades, halving his pain along his spine. Her sweet breath added an aromatic and brushed the tendons in his neck while she massaged. My name is Amber Monet. Are you any relation to Daedalus Monet of Stone's Throw? No, Amber Monet is my professional name. You need a professional name in domestic service? She let his one unobstructed eye trace the contour of her shoulder in the white uniform, which was far enough away to delineate as a horizon. Words drew him back to the shape of her mouth. This is a costume, she explained. I thought you worked in the building. Only in the sense that I'm a working girl. The topic had been breached. What happened? He mumbled. Earlier. What do you think happened? But you're seeing Omar, right? I work for an escort service, she said, quickly adding, although I'm really cultivating future prospects as a therapist. Silky hose scratched his pants leg, and he bought into her euphemistic description. Am I a prospect for your therapy? Do you want to be a prospect? Her Socratic method of answering questions with questions interfered with his appraisal of their dynamic. The prostitute jumped ahead of his confusion. This is personal. My wanting to talk to you is less about business and more personal. He responded positively to this confession. Omar says you're an artist. I majored in art history for a couple of years at the Art Institute. His reaction was not one of surprise, but candidness. I cannot picture you as a studio major. Not every hooker is a high school dropout, she riposted. He clarified his remark. I mean, you would have to be an art history major, since you do not seem to be flaky enough to be a studio major. Her back rub eased up momentarily, suggesting a question mark hovering over the bed. I guess I'm flattered? He was in no shape to choose his words better. Amber leaned into his lower back. Omar mentioned that you have a girlfriend. Though attracted to the frank conversation, Aiden was not keen on this subject. His parry was more revealing than he intended. I don't think I've ever had a real girlfriend. Why haven't you ever had a girlfriend? One evasive answer required another. It's complicated.
Do smart, independent women intimidate you?
With smart, independent women, he finessed, the gamble depends on their relationships with their fathers.
How so?
Women who have good relationships with their fathers tend to be good-natured, possess practical intelligence, and are fun-loving. Those who don't have good relationships, well, let's just say higher education in the arts often translates into self-therapy. The more intelligent and intimidating the father, the more bitter the rebellion.
Do you have examples?
Aiden dredged up his list. Lesbian wannabes, closet anorexics, hit-and-run nymphomaniacs.
And this has been your experience?
Pretty much my whole history. What little there is. Amber made a preliminary judgment.
I think the problem with women you mentioned may have as much to do with their age as their relationship with their fathers. Also, women in art school may be more prone to psychological issues, as that goes with the territory.
He conceded the point.
Have you tried dating older women?
How old are you?
I just turned 31.
I would have guessed mid-20s. The masseuse had made little headway with her back rub, so toyed with a caress.
Would you date a 31-year-old?
It's not by design I date women of any age.
But you live in a college town, hang out at a coffee house.
Well, he hemmed, I cannot deny my attraction to the ideal of youth.
So young women are always around, always approachable, yes?
I like the energy of coffee houses.
I am less interested in your rationalizations than the choices you have put in your way,
she declared. He quieted, but his answer was undisguised. I like pretty faces. Amber relented and removed herself to the pillow next to his for better study.
Young women are less judgmental of your life choices, too. Being so young.
I imagine so.
Their youth allows you to be fully yourself.
You're thorough.
Am I right?
Her voice ground down in the darkness.
Are you a little boy in a man's body?
Even in the dimness, his blushing was hard to hide.
You're not comfortable in your skin, are you?
She asked plainly. Is it noticeable?
These women with issues, did they approach you?
There was a reluctant, even murky nod.
Are you not sure?
It's one of my difficulties. Her tone, less sultry, strove for objectivity.
Your passivity has limited your options, I dare say. Women with low self-image will often compensate for it by being aggressive, and in ways that bode no good for someone like you. They can't lash out at the men they hate most, so pick on the men they hate least.
This verdict had a pleasing symmetrical logic.
Have you ever acted on one of these daddy's girls you like?
No.
Why not?
Fear, I guess.
Fear?
He was truthful. I'm a romantic person, too much of a romantic for my own good. I tend to idealize women and am easily hurt.
You're afraid of being rejected by your ideal.
Yes. Aiden knew how pathetic he sounded. Amber detected an inconsistency.
It's a lose-lose proposition, isn't it? If the one woman that should make you risk rejection is also the one woman you cannot risk being rejected by.
The man was despondent. Reason can make no sense of it, and given how fickle women can be, it's all but impossible to get around. She leaned away from his pillow, sorting it out.
What else can you tell me about this ideal woman of yours?
Aiden assumed a lofty tone. It's like Aristotle's golden means, a sliding scale between contradictory qualities. My ideal is funny, yet serious, quirky, yet sensible, friendly, yet discriminating, vulnerable, yet strong, practical, yet spontaneous, naughty, yet nice. She has the best kind of intelligence, wit, and the best kind of virtue, honesty, about herself. Her imperfections spring from a desire to be better.
What about sexually? Would she be half Madonna and half whore?
The man was grudging on the point. Omar says contradiction is only an impediment to weak intellects. The prostitute put her own spin on it. Most women are double-minded as a rule, maybe not with the degree of exactness you require. What you might regard as fickle is often a woman thinking out loud. A woman's reason is more malleable than a man's, more open to persuasion and change of feeling. Aiden was tortured in his candor. I'm easily dissuaded as a suitor, ready to accept any hesitancy as a resolute no. Omar says my obliging literal-mindedness, when it comes to female proclamations, makes me a dream come true for every feminist. Yet I am every woman's worst nightmare. Amber laughed. You and Omar are a lot alike. We're day and night. Only at one level. She made her case. Like the women you were criticizing earlier, the ones with bad relationships with their fathers. I suspect you both have wounded relationships with your mothers. What is your relationship with your mother like? Good, he blurted. Better, he amended. Amber assessed the statement. I am closest to my mother, Aiden confessed. She is unreserved in her emotions. There's no craft or concealment in her behavior. You have no doubt how she feels about you. It's spelled out, warts and all. She loves me, if that is what you mean. The bond of a mother and a child is ineffable, observed the woman. For some, this love is understood from the womb. For others, the understanding comes with time, and perhaps it has to be clearly stated in words to be recognized. Aiden was struck by the sudden melancholy in her voice. Amber's fingers, which strayed into repose, quickly reconnected with his arm. How many ideal women are we talking about in your past? Now she faced him. Her touch took on a different character. He could not feign detachment from it, or his disconsternation in navigating it. What do you mean? She restated it differently. How many women have you not risked being rejected by? A few. Can you give me a profile of one? Well, I can't say that any of them rose to the level of a profile. What are we working from as a template? Models, actresses, women in magazines. And the golden means test. This is just a wish list. I suppose. Amber went quiet, composing her next question. But her caressing hand had not ceased its conversation. Indeed, her strokes had lengthened over his arm. Were you ever romantically attracted to any of the women you ended up dating? She continued. Apart from them not meeting your ideal threshold? Yes, but things went awry. Like I said. They lost interest. Or I did. How often were they the wounded party? Can one ever say for sure in these cases? What were your feelings at the end? She queried harder. Did you have misgivings about it not working out? Aiden was plain-spoken. When it ended, by the time it ended, I knew it was for the best. You were relieved. It had never been put so starkly. She made it palatable. You were relieved because ultimately they were not what you most wanted. Yes. What about the whore? Whore? The masseuse again drew away her hand, but for effect. The whore, she reiterated. We've talked about the Madonnas and now the whores. Did any of your unions fare better in that department? You mean where there was only physical attraction? Yes. Not really. She seized on the non-committal answer. None worked out? Well, were there regrets? Again, it's not easy to categorize such things. Amber summed up. But on the scorecard of women, the object trouvés rate higher than the idée fixes, if on a technicality. He scrambled to put it in context. Objects, to use that term, have a lower bar to clear. The prostitute smiled. Yet, when there's nothing else around, what's around can be like nothing else. Aiden would not let her riddle goad him. She speculated. I suspect you have a standard here, too. I dare say you are embarrassed to express it. The man felt exposed in the darkness. He retreated into generalities. I'm a hopeless case. She was less dire. I think what you really need is to find a mother's unconditional love in another woman. Is that your professional opinion? This is my opinion as a woman. Once you've found someone who truly loves you, the rest, both in and out of the bedroom, is just details to be worked out, provided you don't lose faith with the process. It's hard for me not to do that. I have to see where I'm going. She countered. But love means you can't necessarily see where you're going. Love requires a kind of working plan, doesn't it? A common starting place? You're over-intellectualizing it, Aiden. Love is not a requirement to start anything, only a requirement to continue. He was not sure he understood what she meant in an applicable sense. Can I give you some advice? She asked. He shook his head with reservation. Women don't make up their minds all at once. Don't take it personally until it gets personal. Aiden wanted to buy into the overall sentiment. Can love save me? Amber turned philosophical. For all its pain in practice, love is redemptive in theory. No one enters into it clean, but it makes all things clean by being present. It's not always pretty, the getting there, but the awkward missteps are soon forgiven or forgotten. In hindsight, everything appears to have been designed from the beginning. Destined. She sat up on the bed, going grayer in shadow. Do you believe it was destiny we met? He replied with more feeling than he realized. I do. Amber withdrew her body, and what began as an invasion of his space now felt like abandonment. The prostitute threw her long legs over the side of the bed to orient her heels in the floor. She stood up to squeeze toes down into one. It was only with the restoration of distance the painter was able to take in her full magnitude. She straightened her tight, clingy skirt. You see, Aiden, I too am a kind of daddy's girl. I too want to be a better person. His voice lifted. Yes? I want to redeem something of myself, make up for a sin. A sin? Amber's thigh swept the edge of the bed. She remained close while her words wandered. I dream a lot about a little girl I lost. Are you speaking of a lost childhood? Of your childhood? In a larger sense, yes. If you feel that way, I'm sure you can get something of it back. Her smile lightened the dark. I believe you're right. The heel of her shoe struck crumpled paper, prompting her to bend down and fetch it. What's this? He recalled the torn-up poem. It must have fallen out of his jacket when he took it off. He was vague. An expression of love. A love poem? A thrown-away love poem? Written but not given. For Daddy's girl. For you. The beautiful woman smoothed the paper to fold it, and, on placing it in her purse, leaned over with a wet kiss. The cochineal dye of her lips pierced the dim veil through which they had been speaking. You don't recognize me, do you? She whispered. Aiden roused under her spell. Who are you? Your ideal. The man was doubly confused. Amber scribbled on a pad sitting on the bed table. If you ever want a free artist model, call. You live so far away. I have an apartment in Stone's Throw. Oh? I'm on retainer with several fraternity houses at the college, so I sometimes spend weekends down there. It's a cheap efficiency apartment, mind you. Big enough to sleep in, and only sleep in. Aiden made no answer. So you'll call? He acknowledged her offer with a nod mercifully muddied in shadow. There was a wink and her most indelible smile yet. The click of her pointy heels in the hallway was the last of her he would willingly relinquish. Faint-hearted sleep was attempted, yet he found himself stroking the concave space in the pillow beside him for a strand or two of her hair. Aiden was emotionally conflicted, and perhaps his ability to be easily conflicted was his protective shield in these matters. To give his heart to more than one woman was hedging his bets and softening any potential pain by dividing its source. He wanted to be undivided in his affections, but could never trust a woman not to hurt him. Still, it was, historically, a losing strategy. Instead of agonizing about not choosing one woman, he would more comfortably not choose between two. His mind drifted off in a long, torturous moment. No way emerged through the new complication. In his ambling, a flicker from the covered window brought him fully to his senses. Detective Herod Pincher was peeking out through a crack at the street below. The coruscant satin lining of his cape gave him away, even as its black mantle concealed his presence in the room for some unknown time. Turning from the window, he inquired,
"I pray you had a good night's sleep, Mr. Gage."
Jarringly awake, the hotel guest flipped on the bed lamp. Amber's side of the bed was cool. More time passed than he realized. "I came to see my lawyer," he rasped. The detective stepped forward stiffly, with the borrowed video cassette in hand.
"We no longer require this."
Aiden did not accept the offered tape. "I should notify my attorney if you intend to interrogate me." Detective Pincher dropped the cassette on the foot of the bed.
"That will not be needed at this stage, sir. My turning up here is to demonstrate to you that I know what you are about. You have casually disregarded my request to stay put, to come here and convert with God knows who."
Not knowing what was on the recording, the suspect repeated his defense feebly. "I came to see my lawyer. He lives in the building."
Yes, so you insist."
The detective let the man wriggle a second or two longer.
"As for the tape,"
he confessed,
"the room was too dark to illuminate anything of use. The camera was turned off before sunrise, which does not aid your account."
Aiden was about to protest when the intruder turned in a half-circle to the door.
"I will not keep you any longer, sir,"
he said.
"I pray you will return to town directly."
Silence was construed as compliance.
"I bid you good day, then."
A cautious smile returned to the inspector's face, on disappearing into the hallway.
"Good day, Mr. Gage."
Aiden laced his shoes with a headache throbbing in his temples. He tore the prostitute's phone number off the notepad and placed it in his coat pocket, along with a strand of her hair twisted absently around his finger. In haste, the video cassette was forgotten. The hotel guest limped past the stairs that earlier foiled him. He eyed the decrepit elevator fearfully, yet knew no way down other than a window ledge. The carriage fingered the shaft tentatively in its descent, and in being liberated in body, if not mind, the visitor stumbled out to find the gray film of pre-dawn on the lobby windows. None of the dark monitors winked in passing, although the disgruntled concierge peeked out from his curtain. Before leaving the city, a detour by the old tenant house seemed reasonable, under the off chance the former resident might find his box fan still on the premises. It was nowhere in the unlocked apartment. Pulling his keys from his jacket, something hard struck the linoleum floor. A delayed moment of recognition put him frantically on his knees, looking for one of the 2 souvenir wedding bands from his outing with Emma. Like the strand of hair in the same pocket, it was an intended keepsake, and Aiden took the loss of personal effects like the rupture in a friendship. Discouraged, he surrendered the search and set out for the car. A disturbance in the new tenant's window curtains held him up at the curb. Only a fan could kick up such a fuss. He was glad to see his fan found its way into the Hispanic woman's hands, and not those of the evil neighbor. The traveler nearly beat the sun back to stone's throw. He left the prostitute's phone number on the dashboard, feeling the vehicle was a kind of purgatory, halfway between enshrinement and an undefined course of action. Resignation sent him lumbering upstairs to his bedroom, Dripping off his clothes, an unexpected smell of perfume wafted from his skin. The fragrance had him trying to piece together Amber's face, as well as the alleged attempt at intimacy Omar put her up to. His thoughts of the woman were troubling, if only because he continued to have them. Intrusively, he glimpsed his gray, colorless body in the dresser mirror. As a boy, it had been too close to see, too painful to endure. Now with age, it was too far away to relate to as belonging to him. Shamed by its company, he went into the bathroom to shower. A more composed man returned downstairs. Amber had used the word whore, and whether in relationship to herself or her profession he could not say. He only knew she had been paid by his friend to like him.